And we'll now link up with Ashama in Abuja for the FCT brief. In Akwana, over to you, Asho.
All right, good morning, Nigerians, and welcome to FCT Brief. Nigeria's electricity crisis remains one of the most pressing challenges confronting households, businesses, and the wider economy. Years after the privatization of the power sector, expectations of stable supply and efficient service delivery are yet to be fully realized, raising fresh questions about what went wrong and what must now change to put the sector on a sustainable path. From recurring grid collapses to unreliable distribution and rising tariffs, the power sector continues to test public confidence in reform efforts. As demand grows and energy access remains uneven, particularly in rural and underserved communities, the conversation has shifted beyond ownership to the effectiveness of the policies, regulation, and innovation driving this sector today. Joining us this morning to examine these critical issues and the way forward is Abba Aliu, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Rural Electrification Agency. He will share insights on expanding access through off-grid solutions, strengthening rural power infrastructure, and how targeted reforms can help bridge Nigeria's electricity gap. It's nice to have you here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, just days after, within a week, national grid collapsed twice. And in 2025, we had several grid collapses. And the question is, what is wrong with our power sector?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Just as an introduction, you know, the Managing Director of Rural Electrification Agency, and our mandate is more around the off-grid sector. But I also have had some experiences working on grid and also working closely with the Honorable Minister of Power. In context, I want to state clearly that what the power sector is experiencing, the changes that the Honorable Minister of Power is bringing, are changes that are repositioning the sector. For example, if you look at what he has done around the policy, he has now clearly articulated stakeholder mapping, roles and responsibility, private sector drive, and investment. So he created this electricity policy after a very long period of time without any, and based on the Electrification Act of 2023 that was signed and approved by Mr. President. Beyond that, if you look at what the Honorable Minister also did in terms of repositioning the transmission company of Nigeria by unbundling it into the transmission service provider and the independent system operator, to one, make sure that there's check and balances, so that the person managing the grid is not the one policing the grid. So that unbundling has also created role and responsibility and some checks and balances within the transmission line. Then if you look at also the drive around the implementation of the Presidential Power Initiative, phase 0 had already been completed. The Honorable Minister has mentioned severally the drive around making sure that the phase 1 had started and the deployment of this. Then lastly, also look at what it's been done around the metering. Metering, there's one single line of revenue in the entire value chain, and if that is not well addressed, the liquidity situation in the sector can never be addressed. So now, under the DISREP, we are deploying for the first time in the history of this country massive metering across the country.
Okay, we'll get to the aspect of metering, but all that you have said to the ordinary Nigerian, it's just excuses for a sector that seems to be inefficient 13 years after privatization, 13 years after unbundling, having a transmission company, having generating companies, having a distribution company. We still talk about barely making 5,000 megawatts. We still talk about national grid collapse. And every now and then the excuse is insufficient gas supply. Nigeria is a major gas producing country. Where are we getting the gas policy wrong? Is it that we need to reorder everything and look at the numerous advantage the power sector will bring to the economy So we must fix this and don't beat around the bush. Don't you think so?
Yeah, so I'm best positioned to speak more around the off-grid
I'll get to the off-grid.
Exactly. But from the little, you see, problems, challenges that are inherited, that are for very long period of time, you don't expect them to just be addressed like just like that. It takes time. These are inherited problems that are being systematically addressed over a very long period of time. But definitely to say that there are no progress, I think that is just a statement. The power sector is moving. We are unbundling. We are seeing private sector investment. We have seen the drive. We have seen what the Mr. President is doing, more especially if you look at the sector that I'm that have the knowledge of. If we talk about on-grid, I don't have very much knowledge based on the little knowledge working with the Honorable Minister. But I see what the Honorable Minister is doing, and I give you practical example of what has been done or what he's doing to address these challenges. The off-grid sector, for example, it is under this government that the biggest renewable energy projects ever in the world that is being implemented. Since the time, in one of our engagement, you are the one that even reminded me that since MPN time, there has been that quest by the federal government to address electricity challenge. But there was never any time a structured means of addressing this has been put in place till this moment. Now we are implementing a program that would address the challenge of electricity, providing electricity to about 17.5 million. And this is just one program out of the 20. Before the end of this time, significant number of people without their electricity access will be provided. Now in the country, over 1,000 mini-grids are being developed across the country.
Okay. Let's stick with this mini-grid and what you do in rural electrification. By policy, what you're set to the space you're set to occupy is the space the discos are not supplying for now, maybe the underserved, the rural communities and all that. And but also, the discos do have the geographic monopoly. For instance, if you have Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, they have the geographic monopoly of Abuja. And by going into the market, the underserved, you still operate under this. Do you have frictions? Do you have frictions in your operations?
No, the Electricity Act is very clear, and our act and the regulation are very clear, and there's no any friction. It's very clear to say that the communities that the grid has not reached, these are our purview, this is our customers, this is the kind of people that we should go and provide them with this electricity. But not only that, there are communities that are underserved. The grid has reached those communities, but the services is poorly supplied. So these are normally those on the band D, E. So in this category, we also come in to strengthen the grid. So, and that is the wisdom of the Honorable Minister of Power, as he's working towards strengthening the national grid to enhance the quality of supply for BC. We are being mandated to now work from the bottom to strengthen those others, so that we met. Yes, exactly. And it is on record now for the communities that are completely not being provided. We had already deployed over 250 mini-grids in the previous program. And in the current program, we are working now project developing over 1,000 mini-grids.
And you are doing that effectively well.
I can give you the names of all the communities in all the states that we are working to build this mini-grid. And this 1,000 mini-grids is just targeting the communities that are not provided. These are the communities without access completely. Now, for the communities that are underserved, for the first time also under Honorable Minister of Power, we are now injecting about 280 megawatts of electricity into the grid to strengthen these communities, working with all the distribution companies in Nigeria. And these are also communities that were provided by the distribution companies.
Okay. I like what you've just said, but for the sake of our viewers, the Rural Electrification Agency is government-owned.
Yes.
Now, the various discos are majorly private-owned.
Yes.
The government has investment in them. Now, and we're looking at a situation where the on-grid will improve.
Yes.
So if the on-grid improves, the various discos will also improve in their capacity.
Yes.
Now, at what point will they expect that what you're doing so well in the underserved areas, and they'll say we want to come into those areas because now they have improved and it's under their geographic monopoly? Will it get to that point where if the policy, the policy is not looked into, those various discos might come to say, look, this is my territory. Move away because I have capacity now to supply.
You see, in the power sector, this is very important to mention. We think through all. We do not just come up with the regulation just like that. The regulation has already anticipated a situation. If you look at the mini grid regulation, there's a prohibition where it talks about when the grid reach, meaning when the grid reach to these communities that have the mini grid. Yeah. And I tell you, there won't be any conflict. If you go to the countries like India, you will see the grid and the undergrid, undergrid, the microgrid. In fact, some communities, you give them the opportunity to alternate between receiving electricity from the grid or from the undergrid. There are those that are very environmentally conscious. They will tell you, oh, I only want my supply that is from green electricity. All this, it's happening. What we want, it will take us a very long time to reach to that, where the discourse will reach all where we have our mini grids. But you see, the logic behind our intervention is economics. It's the naira and kobo. It doesn't make a sense for you to build grid, to build distribution network, put transformers to power a community that have maybe less than 1,000 households. And these households are not big households, are small households, where their total consumption is not more than 200 kilowatts. It doesn't make economic sense, right? So, and that is the logic behind our intervention. So our intervention, we now put deploy the generation plan within the community, put a small distribution network, power the houses, and provide them. It makes more economic sense than to extend the grid to say that we have to do that. The globally now, when you are to provide electricity, you have to look at what is the least cost of providing that electricity. And that is why our intervention, and that is why we mapped the entire country, identified the community, and we now say that for each community, we know this is the least cost of providing the electricity to that community.
MD, I must say that what REA is doing is profound, and I, for one, I think I like what REA is doing. But it leads me to something. The 2023 Electricity Act established the legal basis to decentralize the markets. And you now even have subnationals setting up their own distribution, their own generating companies and transmission and all that. But also there was this 2025 amendments that what the 2023 gave, the 2025 amendments seem to have taken it back because they were now restricted, that there are certain areas, limitations touching on national grid, national market, and all that. When you say you can set up yours, then you now have an amendment to that law that now says, look, this restriction, and we're supposed to be a federating unit. At what point will a consumer like me decide that I do not like the service of this distribution company because I'm paying so much and I'm not getting the service? So I want to deal with REA to supply. Because the market must be competitive, don't you think so? We should allow people to, like you have your MTN, your other network. Why? For how long? When can we have this break that everybody can go to the market and compete?
Well, the target as at now is to reach to a point of adequacy before the competition.
Now you left off sharing your thoughts on what the 2023 Electricity Act gave, the 2025 took away, and you wanted to give your perspective.
So the first thing is that those changes are just been proposed, are not yet legalized. The National Assembly just shared some of those thoughts. So I will allow the National Assembly to decide on the logic behind what are the changes. But definitely, you know, when we go to consultative sessions to share, to give our feedback, those are the time that the entire ministry from the policy area will provide feedback to those proposed changes. But looking at the fact that it's only now what we have on the 2023 is the one that is effective, I think that the Act of 2023, it's one of the best things that has happened to the country by opening the market, the electricity market, bringing in the subnational to have the opportunity to play along the entire electricity value chain is one of the best things that has happened. Not only that, but deepening the implementation, the participation of the private sector, expanding the role of Rural Electrification Agency and the renewable energy as a whole to support in addressing the electricity gap in the country. Enhancing the consumer protection in the Act are all key things that are very useful, and we are seeing the impact of that. So for me, we wait and see how the proposed changes are being put forward, and during the consultative forum, we will definitely provide our feedback to those proposed changes.
Okay, because we said we can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. We'll agree that things are not working the way it should be. Though there are progress, but they're not working the way they should in the power sector. Now, what are those fundamental changes you will advocate so that when you have this consultative forum, you're able to say, look, these are the fundamental reforms that we must put in place so that we will be competitive globally?
So from the off-grid points, like I said, that I'm best position to speak of on the off-grid. From the off-grid, we were very vocal to the changes that we are looking at, one of which is not even to do with the Act, but more around the regulation, and we are already engaging with the regulator, is to see that the 1 megawatt cap of mini-grids being increased to maybe 10, 20, even 50. We will love that. The higher, the better for us. And our position has always been clear. Since the Honorable Minister had mandated us to continue to intervene in this underserved area, those areas normally are peri-urban and they have a very large consumption. So we can't just inject 1 megawatt. And I give you an example. One of the areas that we want to intervene here in Abuja is somewhere around Jikwe, down extreme end of Karu. This is a very clustered area with low quality of supply. So we want to make sure that they now have 24/7 electricity. But what we want to inject there is much more than 4 megawatt. We want to inject close to 5 megawatt into that area. But the mini-grid regulation said that we can't build a mini-grid more than 1 megawatt. So we have to go to regulator to give us a special approval for all the 280 megawatt that I told you about that we are injecting. We have to secure a special approval. And now we are saying that why should we have to be going and seeking approval on case-by-case basis? Open the regulation, increase the cap, so that even the private sector that we are working on can be incentivized to be picking this site and work with us to deploy. So that is one thing that we are advocating to be changed. And the regulator has been very responsive, and very soon you will see an interconnected mini-grid regulation with the cap that we want, so that we continue to intervene in much larger capacities.
I like when you said Jikwe is a place, a community of interest to me. And my question is, when you intervene, how cost effective is it? Like when they moved us from in October to the Band A. For me, it's not a problem if I have the electricity, but why should you move me? I'm paying that amount and I'm not getting the service. how expensive or how cheap will yours be compared to that provided by the discos?
So if you are getting high value, you must pay for that high value. It's either you make a choice of whether you want the service or you don't want the service. If you want the service, you have to pay for the service. If we intervene within that area based on we have not agreed on the tariff yet, because we will pay, there's cost of use of distribution network that will pay the regulator, not the regulator, the Abuja Disco, then the cost of our deployment. So the tariff definitely would be band A tariff or even a bit higher than the band A tariff, but you would get that reliable supply, and that is something that normally it's been assured. So in intervening, you know, cost reflectivity and cost and service quality go hand in hand. If you want quality of service, that the cost of providing that quality of service must be paid, and that is the bottom line, and it cannot be changed.
Now, some industry players say that the distribution companies have not sufficiently invested in injection substations, and probably that is why this will keep having this friction and this collapses. And also there is this proposal for recapitalization. Would you say that if they are recapitalized, they will be in a better position to serve the public? I want to get your thoughts on the call for recapitalization.
So this is just my personal thought as a Nigerian, and I absolutely believe that yes, recapitalization will be a good step towards making sure that the distribution company have the financing required to continue to do this investment. And I give you the example. In 2024 alone, Rural Electrification Agency intervened at the distribution level by providing close to 600 transformers to enhance the quality of supply of these underserved communities. And we have all these communities that we deploy these 600 transformers. Now, the question is, this is the function of the distribution company. This is something that the distribution company should have done. But these communities have been there without this intervention, and we cannot continue to wait till forever when the distribution company have the means to invest to provide the quality of service. And that is why federal government, through the Rural Electrification Agency, intervened. But reverse it in a situation whereby the distribution company have the means to put this 600 transformer. It would have been much earlier than the time we intervene. And that is why, in my opinion, the recapitalization is a beautiful idea, and it should be pursued to a logical conclusion.
Okay, just closely tied to that, you said you've had to intervene in several cases buying transformers. And I'm also aware that there are communities that buy their own transformers, and the distribution company will ask them, buy your transformer, buy your cables and all that. Do they have the right to get their money back? Because those properties are the properties of the distribution company. But yes, it hardly happens. So what is the step? What are the steps that Nigerians should take if you purchase your transformer? How can you get your money back?
So the one, I don't think the distribution company would tell people to buy. I don't think so.
It happens. I know of communities like that.
Well, if that happens, then definitely there's already an existing regulation. And like I said before, the power sector have so much regulation, policy, and clarity. The general public needs to just understand this and take on their right. If a community buy or people buy their transformer and install it, once it connects with the distribution network, it's become more or less the property of the distribution company. But the regulator has clearly articulated how that people or community will get back their money. Okay. Even us, to tell you, the Rural Electrification Agency, this 600, I'm already putting my proposal to the regulator to get my money back from the distribution company, so that the federal government will get back its funding, even if it is over a long period of time, and still use that to continue to intervene. And it's like leasing to the distribution company to continue to intervene in communities, and we get our money and continue to intervene till we address the challenge completely. And that's exactly what we are doing.
Now, talking about policy, just because of time, would you say that the rural electrification is an alternative to the discourse, and also closely tied to that, if we're having this gas challenge, is it out of place if we have very serious investment in hydro, like we're talking about the off-grid investment, if we begin to have serious investment in hydro, because there are countries that are 80% hydro and they are doing very well. How do we manage this? Gas is sufficient and we have hydro. Why don't we invest in there?
So that is why, if you look at the policy that the Honorable Minister came up with, and that is why I keep on saying that we have a very straight, logical roadmap, pathway to achieving, addressing all the challenges in the sector. There's the mix, how we target this mix. Even the hydro, there is different category of the hydro. There is big hydros like the Kashimbila, the Zungeru, not Kashimbila, the Zungeru, the Mambila that wanted to do, the Shiroro, the Kainji. Those are big, large hydro, anything up from 500 and above that the country is looking at. And there is this medium-sized hydro, the Kashimbila, the Datlin Kowas, the Ekere Gorge Dam, that many of them, the Honorable Minister is currently working with the private sector to get them up and going. Then we have the micro dam, and this is where it comes to the purview of Rural Electrification Agency. It is not a news. For example, we are just developing a micro hydro dam in Gombe, Balanga community to be precise. Rural Electrification Agency with United Nations International Development Organization, UNIDO. So we are working also in those categories to make sure that even the micro dam is being brought and supplied into it. So that mix is already ongoing. The plan is there, but it takes time to get to conclusion, to even get to financial closure before the infrastructure. And remember, hydro dams, to get a hydro on and going, it takes time because of the environmental impact, displacement of people, flooding issue. You have to all address that before starting the project.
Just a final thought from you. The national grid, somebody said the national grid model is no longer fit for Nigeria's risk profile. Do you think so?
Yeah, so it's also something that the Honorable Minister is working in that regard as well. The circularity or creating loop around the grid. It's to help to isolate some component of the grid to make sure that this issue does not affect the entire country.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Abba Aliu, if you're sharing your thoughts with us on FCT. We quite appreciate your frank thoughts.
Thank you.
I wish you well in REA.
Thank you so much.
All right, that is all that time we permit us to take on this edition of FCT Brief. I hand you back to Lagos, where my colleagues are standing by.